raise your glass up high. Turn it up, it's time. Tall boy on the line. Loud breeze, they will laugh. Raise your...
Welcome back to episode 264 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? And we are coming to you live on Super Bowl Sunday. So what else could we talk about? Yes, that's right, conspiracy theories. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Now, this is an episode that Gaz wanted to do. He's been banging on for a while that we wanted to do an episode about conspiracy theories. However, he went day drinking yesterday and his wife is not letting him out. And yes, we have put that on record, Gaza. I know I said I wouldn't, but tough shit, sunshine. So we do have a replacement, though, and a more than adequate one at that. Before we introduce our guest, Andy. How you doing, dude?
Danny's back.
It's good to have you back, dude. It's been about 12 months, hasn't it?
Yeah, annual podcast time. Let's do it.
And I think it might have been our guest that maybe tempted him back as well. Ryan from the Pub Time podcast, dude. How you doing?
Doing good, boys. How about yourselves?
Really good. Yeah, really good. Thank you. And good evening, Stuart Willis, who is watching and says hello. So, dude, yeah, so we want to talk about conspiracy theories. So, one of the aspects of the Pub Time podcast is the 5 for 5. The idea that if I was going to start again with Tall Boy Radio, I would be stealing, and we'll be doing the 5 for 5 on every episode on whichever topic we talked about. So this week we're going to go 5 for 5 on our favorite conspiracy theories. Now, Andy, bit of a conspiracy theorist, maybe. Gaz, massive conspiracy theory. So I'm hoping he's watching it at home. He'd curse me right now if he is, and also taking the piss out of the jersey that I'm wearing, but that's all good. So we're going to let Ryan, as the guest, we're going to give you the honor of going first on this episode, dude, with your first conspiracy theory that you like.
All right. I went back and forth. I got a handful. I'm going to try to go from my least favorite to my favorite, and hopefully they don't get picked off along the way. But my 5 is going to be the Mysterious 27 Club.
Okay.
So the conspiracy is famous and influential people who just can't seem to make it past the age of 27.
Yeah.
Mostly musicians. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. He would have been maybe one of the first ones. Robert Johnson. The more I looked into it, there was quite a list. Granted, there's a lot of people I wasn't too sure about, but I don't know what it is about that age, but it seems, I don't know. It's quite the coincidence.
Yeah, I've heard about the 27 Club. Probably the most famous one being, for me, Jimi Hendrix. So is it one of those ones? Is it just around? And I should also say good evening, Brad, who also used to do the Pub Time, or still does the Pub Time podcast with your good self. Taking it on slight hiatus at the moment. We look forward to hearing that when he comes back. But yeah, so the age of 27, is it just a random age that a number of people haven't made? So like to Jimi Hendrix, died choking on his own vomit, if I remember correctly. Kurt Cobain, obviously we know how he went out, and he was
shot by his wife. Is that what you meant by that?
Well,
dude, it'd be really hard to shoot yourself with a shotgun. I mean,
yeah. I mean that's a conspiracy theory in itself, isn't it? That one. And when you think about it, I think it's rule. Obviously, it's been rule suicide, but like you say, shoot yourself with a shotgun. It's not the most common way to do it, I don't think. But
Robert Johnson, I find fascinating as well, especially with the story of the Crossroads and selling his soul to the devil. He disappears for a while, comes back as what some people say the greatest blues artist of all time, and then really only has like a year or two run as that, and he's found dead mysteriously, just like most of these people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a degree of mystery, or well, I guess if you're going to go out at 27, generally speaking, obviously it's not going to be old age that's done it. So there's going to be something. There's something else at play there. What's your thoughts on this one, Andy? You're a big fan of musicians of this ilk.
I was just thinking then, could it be like not the peak of the fame, but once they start getting good money and the better class of drugs, is that when, you know,
It makes you wonder, dude.
accidents happen? Well, I don't know.
Mm.
I think Hendrix is like one. He sort of, you know, they all get these gateway drugs and they get up and up and up once they get this fame and money. And could it be something like that? Was John Morrison as well? Was he a 27 club or was he?
He is, yeah. Morrison
Such a-
is in there.
Yeah. He was, yeah. Oh, probably one of the early ones with the Doors, wasn't he? Was it they were what? The late 60s? Maybe Hendrix was late 60s as well, wasn't he? When he passed, or was he early? Was it 1970? I can't remember.
Morrison would have been in the early 70s as well. Because I would say it was Jimmy, Janis, and then Jim Morrison, almost like boom, 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 back to back to back. And who was the Brian Jones?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not a big Stones fan, but I feel like he gets left out of that story quite a bit. So he must have died pretty early on.
Yeah. So Stones, they started in the 60s, didn't they? How was Taylor Swift?
28. Very unfortunate.
There you go. Too late.
I think Amy Winehouse falls in this group as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So she was around about 27 once. She didn't make it to her 27th birthday. I forget which, but no, she's probably the most recently. She's the most notable one since Cobain, I would say.
They're all like trailblazers in their own little genres as well, aren't they? Like each one's got its own.
Oh, absolutely.
Winehouse, like that 50s sort of swingy singing style, and
a lot of what
soft
ifs.
rock stuff.
Some of these people, lived to see 50. Maybe how music changed.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, we had a musician on the podcast, a guy by the name of Jack Cottrell, who's a jazz drummer, and he talked about the life of excess in jazz. So, it was sort of mainly drinking with him. However, he started taking cocaine so he could basically extend the amount of time that he could drink for. Stop him falling asleep, he'd take the coke, keep himself awake so he could drink for longer, which is an interesting choice, which he obviously now regrets and has renounced. But you know what I mean? That lifestyle is typical. And there is that sort of idea that when you're doing drugs and when you're drinking heavily, that you're getting a degree of inspiration, for your creativity, which he says is not the case. And that now that he's sober, he's much more creative. And, that's I'll take his word for it. Don't get me wrong. He is a successful musician. God bless him. But do you think that's it? Do you think that it's that's it, that they sort of dance with the devil a little bit for their career? And I mean, nowadays, God, I'm going to sound old saying this, but musicians and pop stars and what have you, they aren't. Do you know what I mean? They just fall into line. They're just they're corporate images, aren't they? Whereas in the past, those folks that you're talking about were real creative types. They didn't have the songs written for them. They were trailblazers in what they did, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they stuck out. So I think that lends, a little something to the conspiracy idea that these guys are trying to do it outside of the box and maybe it's time to get rid of them. They're better as a memory.
Do you think that's what it is then, dude? Do you think that there was a sort of hand at play there?
Oh, in the music industry, there's no way you could tell me there isn't something darker underneath it. You know what I mean? Just the way you see some of these people skyrocket out of nowhere and they're nobody. They were nobody the day before and now they're plastered everywhere. And as long as they do as they're told, they seem to stay there. And then as soon as they step on toes, they disappear.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. We watched that Elvis film a couple of years back, was it, or last year maybe? He's like, apparently his manager like held Elvis to ransom and all. I don't know how true it is or not, but it's quite interesting on the darker side of the industry, isn't it?
Yeah. I watched the film. It was a good film, to be honest. Big fan of Elvis myself. The daughter, big fan of Elvis as well, because basically she's seen it in Lilo and Stitch. You know, I'm not sure.
What was that guy's name? Colonel Parker? Is that
Yeah.
who it is? Yeah.
John Parker, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, by all accounts, he did. He wasn't a particularly pleasant individual, and wasn't the caring fatherly figure that he was sort of portrayed to be at the time for Elvis. But again, that's the big one, though. We can segue then into my first one, if you like. Bob Joyce. You ever heard of Bob Joyce, the pastor?
Mhm.
So Bob Joyce is the guy who's rumored to be, if it is to believe, Elvis Presley, when he was sick of life, that he is still about today, and he is a pastor called Bob Joyce.
Yeah, it's that guy that looks like Kenny Rogers. I know who you're talking about.
yeah. He does look like
Age-wise, I think Bob Joyce is off a little bit, but he does look a lot like him. I mean,
he's off by about 20 years, so there is a little bit of a difference. So it does take a bit of a leap of faith. However, if you ever heard the dude sing, have you ever heard him sing Elvis songs?
I don't know. I would imagine I've heard something. I know exactly who you're talking about now.
Yeah, the dude sounds like Elvis when he sings. He looks like Elvis when he sings. And like you say, he's out sort of age wise. So Bob Joyce, allegedly born 58, Elvis 35. The faces match up nicely. But Bob Joyce and his mannerisms and the way he pauses, and they have exactly the same laugh. It's one of those ones which, to be honest with you, everybody who loves Elvis hates the fact that he basically died on the toilet. That's no way that a legend like that should be passing. In terms of Elvis, you'd love to think he was still alive, so maybe it's a little bit of belief because you want it to be true. But the fact is, do you know the name of Bob Joyce's wife, by the way?
Is it Priscilla? I'd
No.
shit if it was Priscilla.
No, dude, you're not a million miles away though. It's Willena Joyce, who previously her only real sort of claim to fame was she was Elvis Presley's girlfriend. Which
maybe she still is.
Well, that does sort of like beg the question. The dude was at Elvis Presley's daughter's funeral. You know what I mean? His son and his grandson, if you've ever seen pictures of them, are spitting images of Elvis Presley himself. That said, the dude does look a bit like Elvis, so it wouldn't be too far to believe that some of his offspring would also look like Elvis, if you know what I mean. The genes are there.
I have a feeling there's a gang of people in Las Vegas that hate this Bob Joyce guy.
Well,
Can't stand him.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Do you buy into the fact that Elvis was working for like the CIA or the DEA back in the day, and that would have been the reason for him to fake his death? Have you ever like looked into that? Like he was pushing pills, but there was someone. The CIA and the DEA hates when they're not the biggest drug dealer, right? So I think Elvis had a bit of a pipeline to maybe some, people up the ladder. And that's always kind of been a conspiracy that he was kind of in bed with them when the heart attack, took place. And that was a good way just to make him disappear.
If I don't know, I mean, maybe. If you were to recruit someone to work with the CIA or whoever, then I don't know. Would Elvis be your man? I don't know. If I was Elvis, I'd be swayed. You know what I mean? He can do karate. Why not work with those guys as well?
Absolutely.
There's another notch in his belt. But I mean, do we buy into the idea then that so you're suggesting that it's actually more likely that he was offed than that he survived and just got tired of fame and nonsense?
No, not that he was offed, but that he was more or less an inside guy, and whether he was found out or made, whatever, they had to make him disappear. It'd be no different than other people that work for the CIA, or, you basically become a ghost. Gone. You never existed. But when you have somebody with the popularity of Elvis, like, it would have to be staged differently.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
see what you're saying, dude. Yeah, I see what you're saying. What are your
Just like
thoughts, Andy?
if for some reason Mr. Epstein is still floating around on some island somewhere, like, he's too big a guy to be like, he's gone. We just don't know where he's at. Like, you have to kill them, and people have to know about it.
You saying Epstein's still with us, then, do you think, dude?
No, absolutely not. He pissed off the wrong people.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my impression of the dude. Yeah.
They helped him tie that knot. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they tied it for him. What are your thoughts, Andy? On Elvis, not Epstein.
We could do like probably 5 conspiracy theorists just on the Elvis, couldn't you?
Yeah, you probably could do.
But it's like, maybe if he was off, saying he died on the toilet is quite a good way of embarrassing him. You know what I mean? It's like, it's an embarrassing way to go, isn't it? Like dropping your kids off or whatever. And yeah, don't know. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah. It's certainly, I don't know. I hate to think of that, dude. I would just out of interest, actually, in the next episode of Tallboy Radio, we have a guy on who was an FBI informant, so that should be an interesting episode as well. So the guy who worked with the FBI, who turned tails on the Chicago mob, and had the likes of what's his name? It was Joe Pesci's character in Casino. I forget his name. That's going to come to me now. It's going to bug me. I haven't written the notes for it yet. So he was friends with him. Joey the
Nicky.
Yeah, and the clown Lombardi as well. Yeah, so those guys. Yeah, so he was he was handing over evidence on them and the crimes that they were doing. So that should be an interesting episode. So anyway, Andy, do you want to go for one with your one of your conspiracy?
What should we go for? So Titanic. There's quite a few with that, but one is like it never sank. Another one is, all these like millionaire people that are on there and competitors for JP Morgan. Quite a few little conspiracies about that.
Yeah.
Pick and choose which one you want.
Yeah. And good evening, Mike Gray, as well. Thank you for stopping by and for saying hello. Yeah, an interesting one, the Titanic one. And the JP Morgan stuff is probably the most interesting one because whenever there's money involved, and we've sort of seen, we mentioned there with the likes of Elvis, the likes of Epstein, there's always questions to be asked in there, when people are perishing. In terms of a ship that was titled Unsinkable, and actually normally if Gaz's here tonight, there's a huge Lego Titanic sat to the right of me, but I'm not going to piss around with the camera because it'll go pear-shaped and I won't be able to get it back in place. I've been fascinated by Titanic, mainly because the guy who sank it, if you will, Captain Smith, was born literally about 10 miles down the road from where we are right now in Burslem. Yeah, so he's hence why one of my favorite beers that I buy, the Plum Porter, is from the Titanic Brewery, and that's why it's so called, because Captain Smith was from the local area, believe it or not. And
so are you saying local captains are shit, or where are you going with this?
Well, I'm saying there's only one I've ever heard of, and he's
not great.
Yeah, he's famous for sinking a ship. Don't get me wrong, he probably had like years of like hassle-free sailing before him that nobody ever knows about, and then he takes down one ship and everybody gets.
This is the one we remember. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, interestingly enough, like I say, so there's not all that many famous people from the Stoke-on-Trent area. I apologize if you are from the Stoke-on-Trent area, Robbie Williams and a few others, but there are murals in the local shopping centre, and one of which is Captain Smith. And they've done him like with the ship going down and his face coming out of the iceberg. And I just think probably better ways to remember the fella than that. You know what I mean?
Let's be honest. Rose could have moved her ass over a little bit, right? There was room for Jack. He didn't have to go down like that.
No.
Am I right?
Yeah, 100%.
I would like to believe my wife would have moved.
Not convinced of mine, to be honest with you, at the moment. Definitely Gazzy's wouldn't. That's why he's in the doghouse right now.
He'd be a buoy.
It'd be done. One and done.
Have you guys ever heard of the? And I'm not like well versed, but it's somewhere I remember watching some of the conspiracy about the Titanic that it wasn't actually the Titanic that sank.
Yeah,
The ships were flipped,
yeah.
but there were pretty important people on the ship that actually did sink.
So
And
yeah,
more of a money kind of deal that, or you know, whether it be like a Rothschild kind of deal where, you know, these basically were my financial enemies, and if I were to get rid of them, you know, now I kind of corner the market.
yeah, I have heard this. So I think so. The sister ship, which I think was called the Britannic, is supposed to be the one that went down. And if you and like the footage of around the bridge or what have you is, if you look at the stuff that they've done the video down there, and obviously you can do your own stories as well about the guy who was taking submarines down there because that didn't end particularly well either. But yeah, there's the area around the bridge wasn't how it looked on the Titanic, but it was pretty much a mirror image of what it looked like on the Britannic, as I understand. And like you say, there's that rumor that the two ships were you know were what's the word I'm after? They were switched. That they weren't the one that went down was like you say had the different people on it. I don't know if I believe that. End of the day, this ship has been sat on the bottom of the ocean for quite some time, and time will have taken its toll on it, and obviously the conditions under there. And it's only a matter of time for the whole thing gets destroyed anyway. So you
Right.
know if you know you know that story will get hidden forever if it's true at some point because it is slowly collapsing with the pressure on top of it. But they have taken a fair bit of it up. If you ever go to the Luxor in Las Vegas, they've got a few bits and bobs of the Titanic there, including the largest piece of the hull that's been brought up. I got told off for climbing over to touch. I thought if I got a piece of the Titanic in front of me, I'm not gonna miss this opportunity. You've got a bit of cord. I'm gonna step over. I'm gonna touch it. So you ever touched a piece of the Titanic? Yeah, I have. Yeah, and I
I'm
got
gonna
told off
lick
by one. Yeah, I didn't lick it, dude. Yeah, that would be extreme. That would be extreme. Go on then, Ryan. Do you want to chuck another one at us?
Yeah, I'm in. I got my 2, or I guess it'd be my 4. All right. I'm going and truthfully, there are some like religious stories that kind of fascinate me. Other ones, I hate to say it, I sometimes believe they're a little more fantasy than reality. But one I very much so buy into is the story of Mary Magdalene and possibly her relationship with Jesus Christ being the Holy Grail. I mean, that makes more sense to me than what it's always kind of been sold as a cup. Like
Yeah.
the passing of that bloodline on to someone else. That sounds wildly more realistic and believable, and a good reason why the Catholic Church really doesn't acknowledge her at all.
I mean that is pretty interesting in itself. So that's loosely the I mean it was covered in Dan Brown's book, wasn't it? The Da Vinci Code. That's probably what sort of popularized those stories.
Absolutely.
But yeah, yeah, that being dead honest, I hadn't heard that since prior to the Da Vinci Code. Were you sort of aware of it prior to that?
Obviously Mary Magdalene had kind of came across, but to us, the way it's always been told is, you know, she was more or less a whore that, you know, bring me, you're tired, you're weak, you're whatever, you know, Jesus didn't stereotype anyone, right? So he's treating this woman no different than anyone else. But it just, when you speak about like everlasting life or whatever, you know, it's like Indiana Jones, you know, in the search for the Holy Grail. It's just a dusty ass cup sitting in a cave somewhere that he used at a supper. I don't buy that cup holding any sort of actual value other than what it's worth as it sits. Now, if you're telling me there was some sort of, you know, demigod or God that walked on this earth who, you know, reproduced, now that sounds like something, you know what I mean? That's something you could buy into. But I think unfortunately, with a lot of these stories, they don't like, so from the original writings, how many times have those things passed through other people's hands?
Yeah.
And what agendas did those groups of people have every time they revised that book? So I feel like there probably were some stories that, over what, 12, 15, 1600 years now, let's cut out that part. Let's not make Jesus sound like more of a average everyday man. He doesn't have time to deal with a wife or whatever. And really, there is a gap of time. Like, if you really get into the Bible, there's a gap of time that's basically they just kind of brush over it, where it's like this part of his life, not that important. Let's just get to the part where we hang him on the cross.
Yeah.
So it's like, what fills in from A to B? What happens in there? And I would lead to believe that he led a life like any other man. And why would she be the one weeping at the foot of the cross? What would make that woman any different than any other woman he had came across in his time? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Dude, yeah, no, you put that rather eloquently.
And the reason why she'd be taken to the south of France to be buried, like, and I know Dan Brown's, like, the parts in the Rosalind Chapel and whatever, that was made, blown out of proportion for the movie specifically. But like, she has a tomb in the chapel of St. Maximus, and that's where she's been kept for 200 years now. Like, that seems pretty crazy just for a random average everyday woman.
Yeah.
No, she meant something to someone pretty specific.
I guess, I mean, like you said, the most interesting part about the Bible was it was written about 400 years after Jesus had perished, whether you believe it or not. We might get to Andy's take on this in a minute, because I'm sure it might be slightly different to mine. But yeah, so it's written about 400 years after she perished. And allegedly, that, like I say, that, and this is what sort of Dan Brown's book features around, is the missing book part of the Bible, because there's so many books make up the Bible. And the book that is missing is I think is Mary's take on it as well. And part of that being is the reason why it was taken out was because they discussed the idea is you don't have to go to church to worship. If God is all around you, the church is basically a body and it's a vessel, and you can worship there. However, you don't need it. You need religion in your life. You don't need the church in your life. And they're two very, very separate things. You could understand that a business, because let's face it, that's what the church is. And if we make it and we debase it in that way, there's a business that makes money out of religion. The two aren't necessarily hand in hand. And as we were discussing before, the old dog collar at the start. So you know what I mean? But that is the case. You don't have to go to church to practice religion. However, the church needs to be in the equation for it to financially function. So yeah, I think that's a large part of it. And maybe that story, the way that she put that across, maybe that's the reason why she was taken out of the equation. What are your thoughts, Andy, on this one? We know you're not are you a religious man? I won't put words into your mouth.
I was thinking a few things then. I just think it's like I was thinking stories like my granddad told my dad, and my dad told me, and it's like I can't even remember them, let alone like 400 years after. There's loads, and then like languages as well. There's not direct translations of some words. Like we have 20 odd letters in the alphabet. Other countries have 15 or something like that, and some have like 50 odd. And it's interesting. I've written it down though. This Mary Magdalene one, just propaganda. I quite like the sound of that. Yeah. Hello, little conspiracy theorist. It's quite an interesting one though. Yeah.
That is an interesting one. And I think, like you say, anything with religion, anything with money as well, there's always something obfuscated there. You never see the full truth. And I do think, yeah, that is an interesting one in terms of and like I say, the idea of Mary Magdalene, saying that you don't need to worship in the church, you can worship all around you. I do find that a very interesting aspect as to why she was sort of taken away and ostracized. And like I say, Dan Brown definitely overplays that. Unless don't take anything away from it. It's a fictional story, but the wonderful thing about Dan Brown stuff is it was, it's not a million miles away from the truth. When you look at the stuff that he wrote, what was there one? Oh, dude, with the circles of hell, like Dante's, what's it? Basically, it was about
Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, Inferno, that's the one. Yeah, yeah. So if it was book Inferno, it's basically about a guy unleashing a virus on the world, and you sort of think,
hey, we've almost seen that story, huh?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that now. I read the book and then I saw it and I watched it live. The book was better.
I had a bout of the Kung Flu last week. I beat it though.
Fair play, dude.
They're gonna have to beef that thing up for the next round. Couple beers knocked it right out.
That one kicked my ass over Christmas. I picked it up on the 1st of December. I didn't shake it till nearly mid-January.
Do you have a really weird cough?
Yeah, well,
sounded like it was coming out like from the bottom of your body, like is.
Oh, dude, yeah. But so my little lad got it first, and then I started with it about a day later, and he just shifted it like it was nothing. And me, I thought, if only I'd got those vaccines, I'd have been fine right now.
You'd have probably had it sooner.
I probably would have had it longer as well. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we could touch on conspiracy theories, but here's the interesting one. Just because Trump is in office now, and this is what spawned the idea. This is why guys wanted to do an episode on conspiracy theories. And Stuart's just chucked JFK out there. So how long before Trump does release those files, do you think?
How long before he ends up like JFK?
Oh wow, I'm telling you what,
the first time
it was close. That was close. Yeah.
Truthfully, anytime the government releases anything, they'll give you the meat and potatoes, and then all the good stuff, they'll just have a black line through it. So what's it matter? Everybody knows they had something to do with it, and most of those people should be dead by now. So why wouldn't you just tell us the truth?
Yeah, I wonder if there's one or two of the larger players either are still alive or their offspring are still alive and in positions that perhaps we don't, you wouldn't want those questions asked. Well, I wonder the same thing. If he does get that information out there, is it going to be majorly redacted so that there's no value to it? Or do you think he's going to be true to his word and say, literally, what I saw will shock you? Bang, have a look at this.
You'd like to believe that, but that's not going to be the case. What politician ever has been truthful?
Well,
because more than likely they end up on this list. You know what I mean? They don't like that, regardless of how over somebody thinks somebody is. They're only going to tell you what they want to tell you and nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're a Trump guy, though, aren't you, dude? You
truthfully, does it matter? Like most of these people act like the world's on fire right now. Really, it ain't no different than it was last week. Most of the shit people bitch left and right about, it doesn't affect your day to day.
No.
The fact that our president had to sign a piece of paper the other day saying that men can't participate in women's sports, that's ridiculous. That really should take up no time on Capitol Hill ever. How that bill even comes across, and we waste money for people that should be representing us for shit that actually matters. You crumple that piece of paper up and throw it away.
Yeah.
So, like, I could see how other countries watch us and like, this is a fucking cartoon show. I am not turning this. This is like The Simpsons live. I don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude, the UK politics really isn't that different.
Really?
Oh, dude.
I don't get on the BBC very often, but
I don't know if it. Yeah. There's a better advice you can take. Yeah, no, I mean, we had an election last year. I'll be honest, I voted for the guy. I voted for Starmer. Well, I didn't vote for Starmer, but I voted for his representative in constituency of Cheshire East or whatever we are. And yeah, and I want to see change, and change is the opposite of what we've seen. We just watch things get slightly worse. I guess that is a change of sort.
More tax. That's it.
More tax.
That's always the answer. That's the same way in Illinois. You got any problems? We'll just ask for a little more money from the people. Never know where it goes, but next year we can just ask for more.
It never goes anywhere good, and it never goes to exactly where that they they say they're going to send it. So whose goes it? Is it my turn to chuck one out there then?
Absolutely.
Go on, dude. I'll go with my third one. Okay, that modern art is a front for crime. Okay. So here's the theory. So I saw some dude put it. Because a lot of the time, I'm making an assumption here. So tell me I'm wrong. You look at modern art and it looks like a piece of shit. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like. I look at the Mona Lisa and I think, fair play, you've done a good job there. And I look at a banana taped to a wall, and if I'm thinking I could do that, then that ain't art. Is that fair?
No, I don't know. No, yeah, I would laugh at most of these. You see some of these people, and it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So here's the theory. Okay, here's the theory. You want somebody killed. Okay, you're one of these folks in the world of business, and you want somebody killed, but for that to happen, there has to be a financial transaction, and where there's a transaction, there's a trail, and you can follow the audit, and it will lead straight the way back there to the individual who's paid the money. And there's that obvious link between the two. You can wash it, you can launder it in the middle, whichever way you do it. There's still a trail where that money trickles. However, okay, you sell me a piece of modern art, okay, which is a banana taped to a wall. I wrote down the price. So there was actually 3 versions of that. Yeah, okay. One of them sold for $6.2 million. A banana.
Maybe it was a rare banana.
I don't care how rare that banana is. Oh, sorry, I'll say it the American way as well for yourself. Banana.
No. I prefer you to say banana.
Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, 6.2 million. Okay, but just say for this, you wanted some. I'm not suggesting the guy who bought it did this, by the way. Please do not sue me, because you obviously are legally more savvy than me, and I would suggest financially more. Well, you got more money than me, that's a given. But yeah, ultimately, the idea is they sell what appears to be the transaction for a piece of modern art, which looks like bullshit, is actually the transaction for something going on underhand in the crime. It all looks fine. It's been cleaned. It's been laundered in that way, if you will. But the idea is they're paying for a service. Does that make sense? Would that add up?
No, it sounds like this guy's got more money than sense, but this sounds like a beautiful way to get around laundering money.
Doesn't it just? Now, I'm not suggesting that in every case where modern art's been sold, that's the case, or in every case where like money has been changing hands, that's the service. It might be for something else. I'm not suggesting that's the whole of the way, but for me, that makes more sense than a banana taped to a wall would go for X amount of $1 million. It just
don't you hope to just one day have that kind of fuck you money to where you could just be like, yeah, $6 million ain't a big deal. Send it over. That guy do whatever he want to.
He can, but I don't know about you. Funny enough, actually, because this maybe we should have started recording this 20 minutes before we did, because it harks back to the conversation that we had at the very, very start. You could give me that kind of money where $6 million meant absolutely nothing to me. And if you have that kind of money, you want to do it, then please feel free, tallboyradio.com. Send us an email. We'll take the money. But I wouldn't do it, dude. I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I've got, I've not come from a position of wealth ever in my life, and I've got more respect for money. I would do something useful with it. I would never spunk it on something. And to be fair, I did. If you play this back, I did just say I do have a Lego Titanic over there. Which
how much did it cost?
It was 700 quid for a Lego kit. So, to be fair, there's an
I don't know how many
argument.
bananas that would have bought, but you're in the wrong business.
I could all the bananas going to tape to walls and made myself millions exactly. But yeah, I couldn't do it, dude. I just genuinely couldn't give away that kind of money. So Stuart chucks one out, yeah. And just while we're on the subject of art, Banksy, you've never seen his face. Surely Banksy is not one person; it is a corporate situation. Surely.
His art is a little different, but I kind of enjoy it. It's kind of
I like it. I like it. I'm not against it. You know, I mean, it's different. It
It
makes you
definitely
thought.
isn't a banana taped to a piece of paper, though. So
No, it's better than that, dude. It makes you think some of the stuff. There's some really important messages in there about war and you know, and you know, like I say, there's some interesting ideas portrayed in his artwork. However, I don't believe it's one person. I do believe it's a corporate thing, and they're making money off of it. No two ways about it.
If it was a person, he probably would have been a member of the 27 Club, wouldn't he?
Yeah, dude. Good point. Yeah. Although one of the person I've heard that it's rumored with was and Ryan, I apologize because this will probably mean absolutely nothing to you. Neil Buchanan
you're right.
from the Art Attack. You remember Art Attack on TV? But yeah, I've seen many rumors that it's Neil Buchanan. I don't buy into that. Go on, Andy. Do you want to chuck one out, as dude?
I could say The Simpsons. There's a saying on like Instagram and all that about the Illuminati, the powers that be they won't just do something to you, they'll tell you about it. And that's why everything goes back to The Simpsons of like there's Trump on an escalator and then like 20 years later he's the same sort of scene and he's on the escalator waving. It's like frame for frame, similar. COVID was one of them, maybe.
Yeah, it was in a box. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's all sorts in there. It's like every episode from like 20 years ago or whatever else has some sort of reference to modern day. Now, is that just maths because everything's you only got finite amount of numbers or something, or is it they try to say, "Oh, Simpsons did it"? That's the phrase, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think the expression or the technical expression for it, okay, if you were to take it that it isn't just a coincidence, it's predictive programming. So in terms of if you need an audience to think in a certain way, you drip it in through the media. So the stuff that they're seeing, the films that they're watching. There's an argument if you ever watch the film Contagion, when we talked about like the COVID stuff, it's pretty much exactly what happened and how they did it. And actually, that was a film that was made years and years before. So you could say, well, that's a mad coincidence, isn't it? Is it a coincidence, or is it the case that they chuck that out there into the mass media? Here's the script, make the movie, send it out there, get people thinking this way, and they're predicted that. So when it happens, they will naturally conform to behave in the way that we're asking them to. Well, it's mad, isn't it?
We did a really good job too. We did exactly what they wanted.
100%. Yeah, 100%. You know full well that if that were an experiment, is to see how well people will conform. Well, 90% of the people will conform 100% of the time. And there's a 10% rebellious, and with those kind of numbers, you're on to a winner.
One of my favorite sayings of all time, this old man I used to work with always said, they feed you shit long enough that you start to enjoy the taste. And that's exactly what happened. We just bought it, just hook, line, and sinker. We were right in. You're right. I should do everything these people are saying. They have my and my family's best interest in mind. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Without ever questioning any logical thought in your mind.
Well, this was the interesting one. We mentioned it. So when Biden stepped down, one of the people who he gave a pardon to, I forget the name of the actual pardon that he gave him, was Fauci, wasn't it? A guy who's not charged with anything, a guy who's not been threatened with anything, and he's been given a pardon just in case he were to be charged with anything. I mean, if you wanted to know the definition of guilty, you give a pardon to an innocent man or a man who's not been proven guilty at that point. That spoke millions of words to me. That one action.
What was
Mm.
just getting ahead of the game.
I know. Yeah, well, exactly, but I thought that was very, 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 very questionable. There's the Canadian fellow with a beard who's very outspoken on social media. I forget his name now; it evades me. But he made a comment like about his neighbours would have happily worn that mask for the rest of their lives if they'd have felt morally superior to the people that they were grassing up. The people that they were pointing the finger at, and I think there was a lot of truth in that. But I ain't going to blame those folks because I think they were led to believe that way. They were led to believe, and they wanted to believe off everything they've been told. They've been predictively programmed into them that this is what you have to do, and these folks are endangering you, even though they're no more dangerous than yourselves. Got a bit deep there, didn't it?
Trust your politician.
Yeah. I should be a politician, although I don't know. I don't. So yeah.
Yeah. Vote.
What was that? Sorry, dude?
You have my vote?
Oh yeah, you'd be better voting for Trump.
Nah. You get a better haircut.
Well, that ain't difficult.
Yours ain't glued on, son.
Interesting enough, though, I did go with Donald Trump on Halloween.
I did see that. It was nice. Good on you. The tan was okay too.
I tell you what, some people said it was an improvement. Maybe the wife. So yes, so The Simpsons is an interesting one, and like I say, we bought Kim's uncle a book. He was fascinated by the idea of this stuff. Like, it's even like there's things in there like they pictured the Shard. They when they did an episode where they sort of zoomed into the future, and Lisa was marrying a British dude. I don't know if you've seen that episode, but in the London skyline, in the Shard features that sort of large pyramid shaft into the sky. Features in 1995. That episode was made. They didn't start building the Shard until I think it was around 2007. So there's no way that conception was even there. Usual. Whether that would be predictively programmed, I don't know. But some of the stuff, like you say, like sort of COVID and Trump as president and Disney buying Fox and all that kind of stuff that at the time appeared laughable, to appear in a cartoon is utterly bizarre, isn't it?
And be so close to actual life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nostradamus is literally the only thing I could really compare it to. But theirs are depicted much better than his.
But funny enough, we were talking about this the other day, and I forget who I was talking with. We were talking about the Simpsons and predicting stuff. And someone mentioned Nostradamus, and I don't know, dude. And I apologize. Actually, I apologize to you both for tarring you with this brush because I'm in my 50s. But is that just us who remembers Nostradamus? Because you don't really hear much about that dude nowadays, do you?
Well, I think after the last couple of quatrains maybe didn't plan out like they were supposed to.
Yeah.
Like what,
The old World War III one hasn't happened yet.
But for 500 years, the guy was pretty spot on. So
I just keep hearing about, is it Lady Babushka or something like that? Some like Russian predictor. Something. She was from like 60s or something like that. Apparently she's done all like World War III and Europe's going to collapse and all this stuff.
That might just be a prediction from Putin, that might, dude. And frankly, Lady Babushka sounds like the sort of film that Gaz would lend you. I say that because he's not here. So go on there, Ryan. Do you want to chuck one at us, dude?
Another history one, huge fan, and that's the idea that Adolf Hitler didn't die in that bunker and that he possibly ended up in the mountains of Argentina. And I would say I watched this one thing called Searching for Hitler. I don't find it much different than what we had with like Osama bin Laden. There's no body. There's no definite proof that this took place, that took place. And to this day, there are mountain villages in Argentina that look like they're straight out of Bavaria. They speak German. They serve German food. And we know that a handful of his top guys were, you know, basically they called them rat lines. It was like a secured escape out of Germany to, whether it be, I don't know, planes, boats, whatever the case may be. But most of the South American countries at the time were huge fans of the Third Reich because they were all under dictatorships. And, you know, so we're talking like Adolf Reichmann, Mengele. I mean, some of the top 5 people, you know, in the SS lived a comfortable life. I mean, Adolf Eichmann, I think he got caught eventually. He was hung. But Joseph Mengele died a old man in Argentina. And Hitler, although you get to a point where you're hated by a majority of people, whatever the case may be, I think you have just as many people that would have fought to the end of their life to protect him, regardless of like how you feel personally about what he did. You know, war is different, and I think it kind of blinds people sometimes. So if he were to get out of that country, I know for a fact there would have been people that would have kept him safe for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I would agree. It is an interesting one because I'm sort of familiar with the story and there are, like you say, villages in Argentina where you've got a number of, well, it was founded by Germans, wasn't it? And the fact that I just think this, you know, if he'd shot himself, if we'd killed him, you know, the Allied forces, that is, then I'd like to think there'd be some evidence of that. There'd be a story behind it, you know, they'd be able to prove it. So whenever there's a question mark like that, you do sort of tend to, and this is why conspiracy theories arise, isn't it? Because there isn't the evidence to back up the story that they're telling you. So you start to ask questions. Have you ever seen there's a film that was made not long ago, maybe a couple of years ago? It was starring Udo Kier, which is a fantastic film. Where it was it's a guy who survived the Jewish concentration camps, and he ends up in Argentina, living next door to a guy who he believes is Adolf Hitler, who's escaped. And it is a fantastic film. It turns out in the end, or so they believe, it's not him. It is actually one of the people who, you know, one of the lookalikes that he was using just in case. And this guy is still over there and is still hugely celebrated by, you know, the Nazis and the people who supported him. But it's a fantastic film, very entertaining thing. And it still leaves you with the question mark, actually, was he the guy? You know, was he Adolf Hitler, or was he, you know, a lookalike as he claims to be? So it is. I'll find out the name of the film and I'll stick it in the notes when I do it. And I would definitely recommend watching it because it's an interesting take. What's your thoughts on that one, Andy?
I was gonna say, with no internet and all that and cameras, it should be easy to disappear back then. And I'm sure I read somewhere like the Russians took his body, but then like apparently his top soldier apparently buried him, didn't he, after he topped himself? But then I'm sure someone said like the Russians took his body and have it as proof. But it's like, well, if they did, then surely he'll be on a wall somewhere. Like,
you'd have paraded that thing through town. You know what I mean? Like, that guy was hated, and he should be. He did some awful things. Like, you seem to believe if they would have done it, they would have, like I said, you would drag that guy through the streets, showing everyone.
100%. Yeah.
That's human nature. That's what we do. You know?
Yeah.
You don't put heads on sticks for a reason. You know, it's like, that's just what we do.
Totally, dude. Totally.
And all the Nazi scientists, most of the people like immediately poo-poo on this idea. Well, what happened to all the Nazi scientists? Oh, they came over here and joined ours. You know, Werner von Braun was like literally the top Nazi scientist. Nobody ever remembers that. They just remember that he got a rocket to the moon one day. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of a, what have you done for us lately?
Did he get a rocket to the moon then? Because that's one of Gaz's favorite.
I'm just saying that's what he's known for. Whether he did it or not, it's irrelevant.
Well, that's the question, though, dude. Do you this is one that probably Gaz and I disagree on the most, because again, it may be the case that I want to believe, but there's still a part of me that believes that did actually happen. Gaz can't accept that it did.
If the United States ever set foot on the moon, there'd be a 7-Eleven. There'd be something there. We would have been back. We wouldn't just went once. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean, they did go back a couple of times. And there's a couple of, is it 13 men that are walking? No, it can't be 13. It has to be an even number, doesn't it? Because they always send 2 to the surface. But yeah, is it, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 men who allegedly walked on the surface of the moon. So they've been back. I just wonder if they just got there and thought, no point. There's nothing to be gained by this. It costs us millions upon millions upon millions.
We only have that one shady video. So you're telling me we went back 6 or 7 times and that's all we got is that one fuzzy ass video of them hopping around playing golf?
There's a couple of videos, because I don't even get me. I'm going to mention it, but it just adds further questions. So,
and do you see that vein popping? He's got vein popping now. He feels he loves Alan Shepard.
Dude.
Huge
So,
fan.
So the first guys who went up there bounced around a little bit, but since then they got the lunar buggy up there. Don't even ask me how that got up there, in terms of what it was attached to, where it came from, and what is a particularly small spacecraft in terms of just carrying 2 men down.
It's easy to do in LA.
Oh, a hell of a lot easier to do in LA, and that unfortunately is where, I don't know if that where that. You don't believe that we went to the moon then, though, dude?
I just, so hard to believe that they wouldn't go back. They wouldn't have tried to rape and pillage it of all of its resources, and there'd be a little neon up there, maybe what was that supermarket you used to work at? A Right Way or something like that.
Co-op,
yeah, have that sumbitch up there too. I mean, that's just as a species, that's what we do for some reason. I don't know why. Like, we take advantage of everything that we're given. So I find it really hard to believe, because we'd have been back. We would have done something ignorant by now. It's like we wouldn't have just gave up and be like, well, we've been there, on to the next. That's not who we are. We rape and pillage. That's what we do as a people. It's crazy.
I know. Said for Mars, they need a base, don't they? Like off Earth, they need a base somewhere so they can jump to that place, then like refuel, whatever, then push on. And it's like, the moon surely is a good spot for that, because you're out of Earth's gravitational pull mostly, so you don't need as much fuel to get from there further. But I'm sure I saw something with Obama saying that there's just been no interest in going back because of the cost and all that. But it's like, well, if technology could do it in the 60s or whenever it was, then phones are supposed to be more powerful and all that, and surely technology's cheaper to a degree. If we could send a Tesla up, why not? Why not visit the moon again?
Again, no, dude. Did we send the Tesla up? Because that's been pooed a little bit as well, isn't it? That's allegedly green.
I will say, Elon Musk building that thing that caught that rocket, that was the craziest damn thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? That rocket coming back down, that hand just grabs it. That's the craziest damn thing I've ever seen. Space-wise.
I said this to guys. If you'd seen that video 10 years ago, you'd have said that was bullshit. You know what I mean? You would have said that is impossible. Somebody is making that up. And this is the trouble. When you see what this guy can do, catching rockets like that, and allegedly in 1969, and this is why I'm finding it harder and harder to believe this. But allegedly in 1969, we sent something 240,000. No, is it 240,000?
It sounds good. That checks out.
That sounds about right. 240,000 miles away, and landed it on the moon, and bounced around a little bit, stuck a flag, some shady lighting, left a lot of questions unanswered, and then came back in 1969. And the other day, some guy had gone like, was it 83,000 miles up or something, and come back down again. And we're celebrating that like it's some incredible amount, some incredible achievement. But it's nowhere near putting a man on the moon. It's
I'll have to ask Trump to release them.
Well, there's a number of stories in there. There's Kubrick. Kubrick, it's allegedly said on his deathbed that he faked the moon landings, and I'm inclined to believe that maybe, just maybe, those moon landings have been faked.
There he is, Clockwork Orange. Who you talking about?
Yeah, the old Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so he allegedly said that those moon landings were faked on his deathbed, and maybe they were. Maybe they were. I genuinely believe that they have been faked one way or another, and just in case they didn't get the footage. It's difficult to believe that they beamed it all the way back there on July 20th or 21st in 69, that they had the technology to do that. It's very, very difficult to believe. So maybe, just maybe, they faked that landing just in case. So they had the backup to show to people in case they couldn't get that footage back. I don't know. And the other one is Ron Howard as well. You heard the Ron Howard story about it. So Ron Howard had said that he wanted to take the footage of them walking on the moon and everything from 69, and he wanted to really bring that footage up to scratch, put it on the screen for everybody to enjoy, just for the utter achievement that it was. And he was telling his dad about it, and his dad said, "Don't bother doing it. They won't give you the footage. The footage doesn't exist. It never happened." And he was like, "Whatever, that's nonsense." And his dad said, "Fine, go ask NASA. They will not give you the footage. I promise you that." So he went to NASA. "Can I have the footage? We want to do. This is what I want to do with it." And they came back to him 3 days later and said, "We've lost it. It doesn't. We no longer have that footage." And it's like, that in itself is quite difficult to believe. Not
That you would lose something like that. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's
once in a lifetime video. Gone.
Yeah, it's like losing the Holy Grail. It's like sinking the Titanic.
I told you where she's buried.
100%, dude. 100%. Go on, Andy. Do you want to talk on that, dude? Is it your go?
Yeah, it's him.
I think so. Yeah. Go with chemtrails. I mean, that's.
I buy in.
Do you buy into it, dude?
I keep us fat and stupid. Why wouldn't you?
Listen, I'll make my own self fat and stupid. Well, any other involvement, I don't need to do that.
But it's easily attainable, right? Back in the day, it would have been hard to be fat and stupid, because if you're stupid, you wouldn't have survived very long. No, and there wasn't much around to be fat. You had to forage and kind of put your work into getting your food. Now you don't. You go next door, help DoorDash it. They'll bring it to your door.
Yeah.
Then you got to worry about your fatty enzymes. You know what I mean? They purposely try to kill you, and we play a big part in it a lot of times, but it's convenience, right?
Dude, that I do believe. When I look at some of the shite that they put in food, I do believe that one. Do I believe in chemtrails? Do we have the technology to cloud seed? Certainly. Can we impact the weather by sticking stuff on planes? Certainly.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, it exists. We know it exists. It's been talked about. When we see those jet trails in the sky, and I'm going to call them jet trails. Sorry, Andy. Is that what they are, dude? I don't know. Do you believe it? I know plenty of people that do. I'm not sold on that one. I believe
I don't. No. But what I would say is during COVID, obviously there's less planes flying around, and the UK actually had a decent summer. Obviously, planes are flying through and moving clouds around, possibly. But yeah, that was like the best summer we've had for years during COVID, when planes weren't flying as much. So yeah, one silver lining to COVID, I suppose. Chemtrails are. I don't really believe it, because if you think how high they are and the cold temperature, then you got a hot jet engine or whatever flying. But then you never know. Technology's there.
How many days did you say it's rained over there?
It's rained a fair bit recently.
360.
What's a better way to get that down to the people? Right? I mean, it's a crazy idea. A plane goes and flies around. You got one guy in the group who thinks, hell, that's a jet doing what it needs to do. I don't even question it. Now I'm going to go pick my vegetables out of the garden. I don't know about you guys. A lot of times, especially in my garden, I don't hardly wash them off. There ain't nothing on there. Shouldn't be, right? I put the soil in there. I don't spray chemicals on my stuff, so I might just cut that tomato up and eat it. But it rained the day before. I don't necessarily know what was in that rainwater, but I ate it anyway. Just doesn't taste different.
It's interesting.
Good way
Andy,
to spread it.
I've been in Andy's back garden. I've not seen him growing an awful lot in there. And to be honest, Andy's probably Googling now what is a tomato because he only eats stuff that's meat. It's come from.
There's tomatoes on burgers.
I'm not saying
was
the
thinking that-
chemtrails. I'm not saying the chemtrails are making the frogs gay, but maybe it's coming down. Maybe we're getting a little taste of it. Who knows?
It's an interesting one.
Places like Tokyo would fight to get through the smog. So what's the difference? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see it any differently. You have things floating around the air that shouldn't be there.
I don't doubt that they can impact the weather and stuff like that, and they can send stuff up there. But I don't know if we're seeing it on it. Man, maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to be a little bit more cynical. I'm just not convinced that that's what we're seeing. I don't. For me, my concern is if I were to sit here and trying to explain to you where jet trail came from, it would mean I have to understand how a jet engine works. And the honest answer is, you'll be surprised to hear I don't know how it works. I don't know why it would create a trail and why it wouldn't. But the idea that temperature in precipitation off the back and and moisture being created when something's hot and something's cold, that I can get my head around. Whether it's whether it genuinely is chemtrails or not, I don't know. But what I do know is we're past the hour mark. So Stuart's mentioned a couple here in the comments. I'm going to chuck out there just quickly, on his behalf. Lord Lucan Ryan, are you familiar with that dude? You've heard about Lord Lucan in the US?
I don't know. I don't know nothing about it.
Oh, I mean, so basically, the Lord Lucan here in the UK was literally that Lord. He was in the House of Lords, and he murdered his nanny and his wife. I think came home and killed them allegedly, or they were found dead. And then
powdery wig guy, or what? What do we got going on here?
Yeah, well, no, not quite that. Well, I'm sure he probably did wear one of those powdery wigs at some point. But yeah, so he was in the House of Lords, and there was, I think, it's rumors of affairs and that kind of stuff. Very questionable individual. But ultimately, one day, wife nanny turns up dead. The story is he allegedly killed one by accident, mistaking it for he come home to kill his wife and accidentally killed his nanny. So, a bit careless, if anything.
Gave her the Princess Di treatment. Very unfortunate.
Yeah. Kind of. Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, she's really got away with that, I mentioned as well in this episode.
But he was hands on. This wasn't like a car driving into a. Okay.
Yeah, no, this was a guy who did it in his own home and then sort of
got away with it.
And this is the thing. So after that day, he disappeared and has never been seen of again. So at some point, oh yeah. So
how long ago?
We're talking, I think early 70s. So maybe, yeah. So a good long while ago.
He's more likely dead by now. But
yeah, if he's still alive, he's in his 90s. You know what I mean? Him and Adolf living up in Argentina, I don't know. But yeah, so ultimately, if he did it, and this is the thing, it's never been proven that he did, but in all likelihood, he did, then he hasn't been seen since. So he either offed himself and the body never turned up, or he was living the life somewhere and nobody ever turned him in. And this was a good-looking guy, by the way. He stuck out. A very tall individual. He was very, very difficult to mistake. Very distinguished-looking individual.
So if you live in the UK, all right, and you commit something like this, where would both of your, like, where's the first place you would try to go to just disappear, be gone forever?
Europe would be the first place, end of the day.
Oh, Europe, but where? Give me a specific.
Well, I would suggest at some point it would be the easiest way to do it. The closest point to Europe is you go down to sort of Southampton or so, that sort of area, a bit further along actually. There's 26 miles over the water and you're in France. And once you're in France, you're on mainland Europe. Everything is connected. So you can,
But,
you've
but do you stick out like a sore dick in France because you're English?
well, listen, we're not popular there.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. You're trying to find somewhere you could just go and you're gone forever. Like Lord Lucan, just gone.
Yeah.
Where would you go?
Where would I go?
You murdered someone and you have to disappear tomorrow.
East Europe, less populated, sort of.
You're saying like
mountains and all that stuff.
you're saying like closer to Russia?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to Croatia. He's just going to disappear. Him and Tony Kukoc going to hang out.
Him and Borat. Very nice. So the other one that Stuart chucks out there, and this is a much more Americanized one, and frankly, I love this story. DB Cooper, dude. I'm sure you've done an episode on DB. Did you do an episode on DB Cooper?
Yeah, it's Kirk Cousins. He stole all that money from the Atlanta Falcons and didn't win no goddamn games. He lives in Atlanta. That's where DB Cooper is.
But a DB Cooper jumped out of a plane. Did he survive?
I think so. They found money.
Mm.
That's all they found, though. I mean, they kept those serial. They had the numbers from the money they had given them. They found it on a beach somewhere in the Olympic Peninsula up in like Upper Washington. But I think so. He was an educated military guy. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He held up a airliner for 5 hours. Like, he wasn't just some goon off the streets.
No.
He knew exactly what kind of parachute he wanted and where he was jumping. I mean, he had that figured out before he ever got on that plane.
I love that story. I love the story of DB Cooper. I'd love to believe that he got away with it and he survived and he got that money and has managed to stay hidden all these years and keep his identity hidden as well.
Sticking it to the man. Everybody loves that.
Everybody loves sticking it to the man. So we're way over the hour mark, dude, but we're just about ready to wrap it up. For two things, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a good long while since you guested on the podcast, and we've had a couple of people stopping by, Brad and Mike and that. So it's been nice to hear from those guys too as well. And on top of that, Andy, dude, good to have you back on. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been good. It's like I've got homework, a few things to look at. But I heard Ryan was coming on. I thought, I'm not going to miss.
Yeah, the ginger giant's back in the house. I love it. The true Viking. You know, if me and you were standing next to each other, it wouldn't look real. You know that? I'm sawed off. I'm only about 5 something. I don't know. You about 7 foot tall, ain't you? On a good day. I see you on that bike.
6.
That's a big ass bike. You make it look small.
Yeah, it's tough buying a bike when you're a bit taller. You gotta buy something that's not a scooter.
No,
I couldn't see you on a Vespa.
I'd like to see him on a Vespa. No, me and Andy have been out. I think we were in Sandbach, and some dude asked us to take pictures with him, didn't he? And pretend that we were his protectors, because Andy and I are, the same height, and we don't look like muscle. I don't think Andy does a lot more than I do, but that's another matter.
Just be honest. It was Gaz. Gaz is the one that wanted you to take the pictures.
That Gaz would be far too drunk.
Yeah, this guy was like, he's tiny, wasn't he?
That's time.
That half an hour we wasted of drinking time, like having these pictures.
Talking to him. Yeah, God bless him. Well, if you're listening, hello. Yeah, dude, we're gonna wrap it up. You're gonna watch Super Bowl. Who are you picking? Any of you? Who's your pick for the Super
He
Bowl?
wanted to say the Lions, but damn it.
What about you, Ron? You don't watch it, dude.
As much as I hate to say it, I'm gonna have to root for the Eagles.
No, man.
There's just too much hatred for the Chiefs right now, and I'm on that train. So
I'm with you, dude. I mean, it's difficult.
You want to talk about conspiracies?
You talk about the Chiefs, yeah, and the refs.
Yeah.
inspiring to see them. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'd rather see the Eagles win it. Do you know what I mean? You know, I'm not that excited about the Eagles winning it.
Blue collar town, you know, their fans for the team are great. They hate everyone else. You know, their team gets out of line, they'll throw batteries at them too. So I don't know, but I would root for the Eagles.
Yeah, I hope so, dude. I hope so, but I've got a horrible feeling it's going to be the Chiefs again. So we're going to wrap it up. We're going to say good evening, goodbye, or what have you. Ryan, do you want to say your goodbyes first?
Oh, absolutely, guys. I've had a great time. And in pub fashion, here's to those that wish us well. All the rest can go to hell. I appreciate the invite, guys. It's been great. It's been a while for me. I knocked the dust off this thing.
Dude, it's been a real treat to have you back on, and you as well, Andy. To be honest, I think I bet you your microphone's got more dust on it than Ryan's.
Yeah, I've coughed on it a few times just to dust it off a little bit. Yeah.
Good man. So we will be back next week. Like I say, we will be chatting to an FBI informant who was grassing up folks in the Chicago Mafia. So don't miss that one. And we'll also be giving him the opportunity to plug his book. But in the meantime, we will wish you a fond farewell. Take care.